Blood dripped up San Juan trees. Whispers hissed from shadows. A spiraling I carved everywhere, watching. Screams vanished in Hollow's End. I'm Emily Carter, I survived. What's out there? Dare to find out? They found the campsite abandoned, the tent shredded, blood soaking the dirt in patterns no animal could make. The only clue was a symbol carved into a nearby tree. A single eye, its pupil a spiral of jagged lines like it was watching. That was 10 years ago in the San Juan Mountains, Colorado. The 3 campers were never found, their story buried in local whispers. Dismissed as another hiking mishap. But I know the truth. I've seen that symbol. I've felt its gaze. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm here to tell you what happened to me, Sarah, and Jessica in a place called Hollow's End, a place that doesn't exist on any map. This isn't a campfire tale. It's a warning. What you're about to hear will crawl into your mind and stay there. So if you're not ready for nightmares, stop now. I was 20, junior at the University of Denver, studying environmental science, thinking I knew the world. Sarah, my roommate, was the cautious one, a history major obsessed with old legends. Jessica, our thrill seeker, was a psychology student who'd drag us into anything for a rush. After midterms, we needed an escape. So I pitched a camping trip in the San Juans, rugged, remote, perfect for a weekend of freedom. We'd heard the stories. Ghost towns, cursed mines, things that watch from the shadows. Jessica called it spooky vibes. Sarah rolled her eyes. I thought it was just folklore, the kind of thing you laugh about over Eskimos. I was wrong. The San Juans are beautiful but unforgiving. Their peaks sharp as knives, their forests thick with secrets. We set out in my old Jeep, the GPS glitching as we climbed higher, the signal fading like a dying breath. By dusk, we were lost. The dirt road narrowing, pines pressing in like silent judges. The air was cold, heavy with a metallic tang. Blood, I'd later realize. Sarah frowned at her phone, its screen blank. This isn't on the map, Em, she said, her voice tight. Jessica, sprawled in the back with a bag of Doritos, laughed. Lost is the point. We're in Blair Witch territory, baby. Her grin was infectious, but I caught her glancing at the trees, her fingers twitching. I checked the paper map, creased from my dad's glove compartment. This road doesn't exist, I muttered, unease creeping in. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no wind, just a faint whisper like voices too soft to hear. I shook it off, blaming nerves, and kept driving. The Jeep's headlights barely cutting the growing dark. Then we saw it, a cluster of wooden buildings in a valley, their roofs sagging, smoke curling from chimneys, but no lights, no life. A faded sign read, Hollow's End, the letters bleeding into the wood. My stomach twisted. There's no village here, I said, checking the map again. Not on Google, not anywhere. Sarah's eyes widened. Maybe it's a cult commune or something. Let's turn back. Jessica leaned forward, her voice eager. No way. This is gold. Bet they've got some X-Files shit going on. I parked near a dirt path, the silence oppressive as we stepped out. The air was colder, the metallic tang sharper, like a butcher's shop. A man stood by the road, his overalls gray, his face gaunt, eyes sunken and unblinking. He stared, not at us but through us, his gaze a void. I forced a smile, my heart thudding. Hi, sir, we're lost. Can you tell us where we are? He didn't speak, his lips twitching as if sewn shut. Slowly, he raised a bony arm, pointing to the forest beyond the village, his movements jerky like a broken toy. Then he turned, his steps silent, vanishing into a house's shadows. The door creaked shut, and the whispers grew louder, forming half-words. "See come." Jessica's laugh was nervous. "Okay, that dude's auditioning for Children of the Corn." Sarah grabbed my arm, her voice low. "And this is bad. We need to go." I wanted to agree, but the sun was gone. The road a black ribbon in the dark. Driving blind was suicide. "We'll camp nearby. Leave at dawn," I said, trying to sound confident. We drove half a mile to a clearing by a stream, its water glinting red in the moonlight, though I told myself it was just the light. We pitched the tent, the nylon rustling in a wind that didn't exist, and built a fire, its flames weak against the creeping cold. The whispers followed us, slithering from the trees, now clearer. "Watch, join." Sarah hugged her knees, her eyes darting. "You hear that, right? It's not the wind." Jessica scoffed, tossing a stick into the fire, but her hand shook. I poked the flames, my skin prickling, the metallic tang, now unmistakable, blood, thick and fresh. Around 9, a shadow moved beyond the firelight, too tall, too wrong, its eyes, multiple, spiraling, glinting before vanishing. I froze, my breath caught, but didn't tell the others, afraid it'd break them. Then Jessica stood, her eyes blank, her face slack, like a sleepwalker. She walked toward the village, her boots crunching, ignoring our calls. "Jessica!" I shouted, grabbing my flashlight. Sarah scrambled after me, panic in her voice. "What's happening to her?" The forest swallowed us, the whispers a chorus now, the trees leaning in, their bark etched with faint eye symbols, watching. Jessica slipped into a house at the village's edge, the same eye symbol carved on its door, glowing faintly. The door slammed shut, and the whispers stopped, leaving a silence that screamed louder. The Jeep's engine hummed as it climbed the winding roads of the San Juan Mountains, the tires kicking up clouds of dust that shimmered in the late September sun. Emily Carter gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale against the worn leather. At 20, she was the de facto leader of this impromptu camping trip, her environmental science major giving her just enough confidence to navigate the rugged terrain of Colorado's backcountry. The peaks loomed around them, their jagged edges cutting into a sky painted in hues of orange and red, like a wound bleeding into dusk. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. But there was something else, a faint, metallic tang that Emily couldn't place. In the passenger seat, Sarah Nguyen hunched over her phone, her brow furrowed as the GPS app flickered and died. "We're definitely lost," she said, her voice tight with worry. A history major with a knack for folklore, Sarah was the cautious one, always double-checking plans and packing extra batteries. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, strands escaping as she tapped the screen in frustration. "This road isn't even on the map." Jessica Lopez, sprawled across the back seat with a bag of Doritos, laughed, her voice bright despite the fading light. "Lost? That's the whole point of this trip. Live a little, Sarah." At 19, Jessica was the group's thrill seeker, her psychology studies fueling a fascination with the human mind and a reckless streak that often dragged them into trouble. Her curly hair bounced as she leaned forward, crunching loudly. "Besides, look at this place. It's straight out of a horror movie. How cool is that?" Emily glanced at the paper map on the dashboard, creased and stained from years in her dad's glove compartment. She'd borrowed it for this trip, hoping to channel his love for off-the-grid adventures. But Jessica was right. This road wasn't on it. The path had narrowed, flanked by dense pines that pressed in like silent sentinels, their branches clawing at the Jeep's sides. The forest seemed to swallow the last rays of sunlight, casting long shadows that danced across the windshield. "Maybe we should turn back," Emily said, her voice quieter than she intended. Sarah nodded vigorously, shoving her phone into her pocket. "Yes, please. I'm getting Blair Witch vibes, and I'm not here for it." Jessica rolled her eyes, tossing a chip into her mouth. "You're such a buzzkill. Come on, Em, where's your sense of adventure? We're out here to make memories, not run back to Denver at the first sign of a creepy road." Emily hesitated, torn between Sarah's caution and Jessica's enthusiasm. They'd planned this trip to celebrate surviving midterms, a last hurrah before the grind of college resumed. The San Juans were supposed to be a haven, clear streams, starlit skies, and a popular camping spot near Silverton. But this unmarked dirt path felt wrong, like they'd slipped into a corner of the world that didn't want them. Still, turning back now meant admitting defeat, and Emily wasn't ready for that. "Let's keep going a bit," she said finally. "If it gets worse, we'll find a spot to turn around." Sarah sighed, but didn't argue, her fingers twisting the hem of her flannel shirt. Jessica hooped, pumping a fist. "That's my girl. Let's see where this rabbit hole leads." They drove another mile, the road growing rougher, the Jeep jostling over rocks and ruts. The forest thickened, the pines so close their branches scraped the roof. Emily's unease grew, a knot tightening in her stomach. The air felt heavier, the metallic tang stronger now, almost like blood. She shook her head, dismissing it as nerves. "Anyone else smell that?" she asked, hoping to break the tension. Sarah sniffed, her nose wrinkling. "Yeah, it's weird, like rust or something." Jessica leaned between the seats, grinning. "Maybe it's Bigfoot's B.O. Think we'll spot him out here?" Despite herself, Emily laughed, the sound easing the pressure of her chest. "If we do, you're taking the selfie, Jess." They rounded a sharp bend, and Emily slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding to a stop. Before them lay a cluster of wooden buildings nestled in a small valley, their roofs sagging under years of neglect. Smoke curled from a few chimneys, thin and gray. But the place was eerily still. No dogs barking, no lights in the windows, no signs of life beyond the faint movement of figures between the houses. The buildings were old. Their wood weathered to a sickly gray, like bones left to bleach in the sun. A faded sign at the valley's edge read, "Hollow's End," the letters barely legible. "A village," Emily said, her voice tinged with surprise. "There's no village on the map, not even on Google." Sarah pulled out her phone again, zooming in on the blank screen. "Nothing. It's like this place doesn't exist. Maybe it's a private community or some cult thing." Jessica was already unbuckling, her eyes bright with curiosity. "This is awesome. Let's check it out. Bet they've got some wild stories." Emily parked the Jeep near a dirt path leading into the village. As they stepped out, the air grew colder, a damp chill seeping through their jackets. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. A man stood by the road, his overalls faded to a dull brown, his face gaunt and eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in years. He stared at them without blinking, his expression blank but somehow predatory. Emily forced a smile, her heart thudding. "Hi, sir. We're a bit lost. Can you tell us where we are?" The man didn't respond, his gaze boring into them. After a long moment, he raised a trembling arm and pointed toward the forest beyond the village, his finger bony and pale. His movements were stiff, like a puppet jerked by invisible strings. Then he turned and walked away, his steps silent on the dirt, disappearing into the shadows of a nearby house. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. Okay, that was creepy as hell. Sarah clutched Emily's arm, her voice low. This place is bad news. Let's go, please. Emily wanted to agree, but the sun was nearly gone. The sky a deep bruise above the peaks. Driving back in the dark on an unknown road was risky, and they were all exhausted. It's too late to head back now, she said, trying to sound confident. We'll camp nearby, get some rest, and figure it out in the morning. Sarah's shoulders slumped, but she didn't argue. Jessica, still buzzing with excitement, slung her backpack over her shoulder. Fine, but I'm calling dibs on the spooky campfire stories tonight. They drove half a mile from the village, finding a clearing by a narrow stream. The water gurgled softly, but the forest was unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the occasional snap of a twig in the distance. They pitched their tent, the nylon rustling in the growing wind, and built a small campfire. Emily tried to shake the image of the man's hollow eyes, but it clung to her like damp cloth. Just some weird locals, she said, poking the fire with a stick. We've got this. Sarah sat cross-legged, hugging her knees. Did you see how he moved? Like he wasn't even human. Jessica snorted, tossing a marshmallow into her mouth. You're so dramatic, Sarah. He's probably just a mountain hermit who hates tourists. But he's got a shack full of moonshine and conspiracy theories. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the trees. Emily forced a smile, but the knot in her stomach tightened. The metallic smell was stronger now, mingling with the smoke. She scanned the darkness beyond the firelight, her flashlight beam catching only endless pines. Let's just eat and get some sleep, she said. Big day tomorrow. They roasted hot dogs and shared stories, but the usual banter felt strained. Sarah kept glancing at the forest, her fingers twisting her shirt. Jessica's jokes fell flat, her eyes darting to the shadows. Emily tried to focus on the flames, but every rustle made her jump. Around 9, a whisper, faint, unintelligible, drifted from the trees, like a voice carried on the wind. Emily froze, her hot dog slipping from her stick. Did you guys hear that? Sarah's eyes widened. Yeah, what was it? Jessica, for once, didn't laugh. Probably just the wind, right? Before anyone could answer, Jessica stood, her movements sudden and mechanical. Her eyes were blank, her face slack, like a sleepwalker's. Without a word, she began walking toward the village, her boots crunching on the gravel. Jessica! Emily shouted, grabbing her flashlight. Sarah scrambled to her feet, panic in her voice. What's she doing? Emily's heart raced as she ran after Jessica, Sarah close behind. The forest seemed to close in, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. Jessica moved with eerie purpose, her silhouette fading into the darkness. Emily's beam caught her just as she reached the village, slipping through the door of a house at the edge of Hollow's End. The door creaked shut, and the whispers stopped, leaving only silence. Emily's flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, catching glimpses of Jessica's silhouette as she moved toward Hollow's End. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows, the pines looming like silent judges, their branches clawing at Emily's jacket. Her boots pounded the dirt, each step driven by a mix of fear and determination. Jessica, stop, she shouted, her voice cracking in the cold air. Sarah stumbled behind her, her breath coming in sharp gasps, her hands clutching Emily's arm like a lifeline. What's wrong with her? Sarah panted, her eyes wide with panic. She's not answering. I don't know, Emily snapped, her mind racing. Jessica's blank stare and mechanical steps were unnatural, like she was being pulled by something unseen. The whispers from earlier returned, louder now, weaving through the trees like a chorus of ghosts. There weren't words, not exactly, but they carried a weight, a malice that made Emily's skin crawl. The metallic tang in the air was stronger, thick enough to taste like blood pooling in her throat. They reached the village's edge. The houses looming in the moonlight, their windows dark and empty. Jessica had slipped into one of the buildings, a squat structure with a sagging porch and a door hanging off its hinges. The door creaked shut behind her, the sound sharp in the silence. Emily skidded to a stop, her flashlight beam trembling as it swept across the facade. The wood was weathered, but something caught her eye, a carving etched deep into the doorframe. A single eye, its pupil a spiral of jagged lines, surrounded by radiating tendrils. It seemed to pulse in the light, alive and watching. Sarah grabbed her arm, her voice a hiss. We can't go in there. This place is cursed or something." Emily shook her off, her jaw tight. "We're not leaving her. Stay here if you want." Her words were braver than she felt. Every instinct screamed to run, to pile into the Jeep and floor it back to Denver. But Jessica was her friend, her responsibility. She dragged them out here, promising adventure. If something happened to Jessica, it was on her. Sarah hesitated, then nodded, her face pale. "Fine, but we're quick. In and out." Emily pushed the door open, the hinges groaning like a dying animal. The air inside was damp and sour, heavy with the smell of rot, and something sharper, blood. The flashlight revealed a cramped room, its walls lined with shelves of dusty jars, their contents too murky to discern. A table in the center held a pile of bones, some animal, some not. Emily's stomach churned, but she forced herself forward, her beam searching for Jessica. "Jess," she called, her voice echoing. No answer. The whispers were louder here, seeping from the walls, forming half-words that teased her mind. "See, come on." She shook her head, trying to focus, but the air felt thick, pressing against her chest. Sarah stayed close, her breathing ragged. "This is a mistake, Em. We need to." A thud cut her off, coming from the back of the house. Emily swung her flashlight, catching a glimpse of movement, a shadow, too large, too wrong, slipping through a doorway. It wasn't Jessica. It was something else, something that moved with a predator's grace, its limbs too long, its form flickering like a bad signal. A low moan echoed, not from its mouth, but from somewhere deeper, like a wound in its core. Emily froze, her heart hammering. What was that? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know, but we need to get out. Now." Before they could move, the door behind them slammed shut, to sound like a gunshot. Sarah screamed, scrambling for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers surged, a cacophony now, filling Emily's skull. The shadow moved again, closer, its eyes, too many eyes, glinting in the darkness. Emily grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the back doorway. "Run." They stumbled through a narrow hall, the walls closing in, the air growing colder. The shadow followed, its moans vibrating through the floor, shaking Emily's bones. They burst into a small room, empty except for a trapdoor in the floor, its edges carved with the same eye symbol. Emily didn't think. She yanked it open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. "Go," she shouted, pushing Sarah toward it. Sarah hesitated, her eyes wild. "We don't know what's down there. It's better than what's behind us." Emily snapped. The shadow was at the doorway now, its form filling the frame, its eyes locking onto her. She shoved Sarah down the ladder and followed, slamming the trapdoor shut. The moans grew muffled, but the whispers didn't stop, curling around her like smoke. The basement was damp, the air thick with mildew. Emily's flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the stone walls. Sarah clung to her, sobbing quietly. "What was that thing, Em? What's happening?" "I don't know," Emily admitted, her voice shaking. "But we'll find Jessica and get out. I promise." A faint sound came from the corner. A shuffle. Then a low whimper. Emily swung her light, and there was Jessica, curled against the wall, her hands slick with blood. It dripped onto the floor, pooling around her boots. Her face was pale, her eyes unfocused, but she was alive. "Jess!" Emily knelt beside her, checking for injuries. The blood wasn't hers. No cuts, no wounds. "What happened? Where did this come from?" Jessica blinked, her voice a rasp. I don't remember. I was walking, and then I was here." Her hands trembled as she wiped them on her jeans, leaving dark smears. "There was something in my head, an eye, watching me. It wanted me to see." Sarah's voice was shrill. "See what?" "Jess, whose blood is this?" "I don't know," Jessica snapped, tears welling. "I saw the eye, and then nothing. Just darkness and screaming." Emily's mind flashed to the carving on the door, the eye with spiraling lines. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a mark, a sign of something older, something that could slip into your mind. She helped Jessica to her feet, her own hands shaking. "We're leaving. Right now." They climbed the ladder, the trapdoor creaking as they pushed it open. The house was silent, the shadow gone, but the whispers lingered, softer now, like a taunt. They hurried outside, the cold air shock after the stifling basement. The village was still, the houses watching them with empty windows. Emily led the way back to the camp, her flashlight beam bouncing, her heart pounding. At the tent, they collapsed. Jessica still clutching her bloodied hands. Sarah sat by the fire, her face buried in her knees. "We can't stay here, Em. Whatever that thing was, it's not human." Emily nodded, her mind racing. The eye symbol, Jessica's trance, the blood, it was all connected. She pulled out her phone, hoping for signal, but the screen was blank, the GPS spinning uselessly. "We'll pack up and drive at first light," she said, trying to sound calm. "We'll find a way out." Jessica stared into the fire, her voice hollow. "It saw me, Em. It's still seeing me." Emily's blood ran cold. She looked at Jessica's hands, the blood drying into dark crusts, and then at the forest, where the whispers seemed to wait. Something was in Hollow's End, something that knew they were here, and it wasn't letting them go. The campfire flickered, casting weak light across the clearing as Emily packed the tent with shaking hands. Dawn was still hours away, the sky a deep void above the San Juan Mountains. The metallic tang of blood lingered, clinging to Jessica's hands, though she'd scrubbed them raw in the stream. Sarah sat by the jeep, her knees drawn up, her eyes darting to the forest. "We're leaving now, Em," she said, her voice sharp. "I don't care if it's dark. I'm not staying another minute." Emily nodded, her throat tight. The whispers from the village hadn't stopped, slithering through the trees like a living thing. Jessica's trance, the blood. The eye symbol on the door was too much. "Okay," she said, zipping the tent bag. "We'll drive slow, stick to the road. We'll find a signal and call for help." Jessica stood apart, her arms crossed, staring into the fire. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, as if something had drained her spark. "It's still out there," she whispered, almost to herself. "It sees us." Emily's stomach twisted. "Jess, you're freaking me out. Let's just get in the Jeep." She grabbed the last of their gear, tossing it into the back. The forest was too quiet. The usual night sounds, crickets, owls, gone, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed against her ears. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. They piled into the Jeep, Emily in the driver's seat, Sarah's shotgun, Jessica in the back. The engine sputtered, then roared to life, the headlights cutting through the darkness. Emily gripped the wheel, her knuckles white, and eased onto the dirt road. "We'll be fine," she said, more to herself than the others. "We'll follow the path back to the highway." But the road seemed different, the curves sharper, the trees closer. The headlights caught flashes of movement, shadows darting between the pines, too quick to track. Sarah clutched her phone, the screen blank. "No signal, no GPS," she muttered. "This isn't right, Em." Emily's heart pounded, but she forced her voice to stay steady. "It's just a dirt road. We'll find the way." She didn't believe it. The I symbol flashed in her mind. Its spiraling lines burned into her memory. And then there was something else, a memory, faint but insistent from years ago. Her grandmother, a wiry woman with a smoker's rasp, telling her stories by the fire in Durango. "There's an eye in the mountains," she'd said, her voice low. "Older than the rocks, hungrier than death. It sees everything, and it takes what it wants." Emily had laughed it off, a kid's ghost story. Now, it felt like a warning. A thud jolted her back to the present. The Jeep lurched, the steering wheel jerking in her hands. Sarah screamed, and Jessica gasped. "What was that?" Emily slammed on the brakes, the tires skidding. Something had hit them hard. She scanned the road, the headlights revealing nothing but dirt and trees. Then, a low moan echoed, not from the forest, but from beneath the Jeep, vibrating through the metal. "Get out!" Emily shouted, throwing her door open. Sarah fumbled with her seat belt, her hands shaking, while Jessica scrambled out, her eyes wide. They stumbled onto the road, Emily's flashlight beam sweeping the darkness. The moan came again, louder, accompanied by a scraping sound, like claws on steel. The Jeep rocked, its frame creaking as something moved underneath. "What is it?" Sarah's voice was a shriek, her hands clawing at Emily's arm. Before Emily could answer, the thing emerged. It unfolded from beneath the Jeep, its body impossibly tall, nearly 10 feet, its skin pale and translucent, stretched tight over a frame of jagged bones. Eyes, dozens of them, dotted its torso and arms, blinking asynchronously, each pupil a spiral of black lines. Its head was featureless, no mouth, no nose, just a smooth expanse where a face should be. The moan came from its stomach, a gaping wound that pulsed with every sound, leaking a black ichor that sizzled on the dirt. Emily's legs buckled, her flashlight slipping from her hand. "Run!" she screamed, grabbing Sarah and Jessica. They sprinted into the forest, the creature's moans shaking the ground. Branches snapped behind them, the thing moving with terrifying speed, its long arms slashing through the pines. Emily's lungs burned, her mind a blur of panic. She didn't know where they were going, only that they had to move. They stumbled into a clearing, the village looming ahead. The houses were dark, but one stood out, a crumbling structure with boarded windows, its door ajar. "In there!" Emily shouted, shoving Sarah and Jessica toward it. They burst inside, slamming the door and dragging a rusted table to block it. The moan stopped, but the silence was worse, heavy with anticipation. The house was a ruin, its floor littered with debris, broken glass, rotted wood, and papers yellowed with age. The air was thick with dust and decay, the I symbol carved into every wall, watching them. Sarah collapsed against the table, sobbing. "What was that thing, Em? It's not human. It's not. Stop!" Emily snapped, her voice harsher than she meant. She was shaking, her mind reeling from the creature's eyes, its moans. "We need to stay calm. We're alive. That's what matters." Jessica stood by a cracked window, peering through a gap in the boards. "It's still out there," she whispered. I can feel it, like it's inside my head. Her hands were clean now, but she rubbed them together, as if the blood was still there. Emily forced herself to focus, scanning the room. Her flashlight caught something under a pile of debris, a small, curved object half buried. She knelt, brushing away the dust, and pulled out a piece of bone, smooth and warm to the touch, as if it had just been carved. The eye symbol was etched into it, its lines glowing faintly in the dark. She dropped it, her skin crawling. What the hell is this? Sarah crawled over, her eyes red. Don't touch it. It's probably cursed or something. But Emily picked it up again, the warmth spreading through her fingers. It's a clue, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. This symbol, it's everywhere. The door, the basement, now this. It's tied to that thing. Jessica turned from the window, her face pale. I saw it in my dream. The eye. It was alive. It spoke to me, told me to come to it. Her voice broke, and she hugged herself. I think it made me go to that house. The blood. I don't know what I did. Emily's chest tightened. The memory of her grandmother's story surged again. The eye in the mountains, she murmured. My grandma used to talk about it. She grew up near here, in Durango. Said miners found something in the San Juans, something that watched them, took their minds. She called it a demon. But I thought it was just a story. Sarah's eyes widened. You're saying this is real? That thing out there? I don't know. Emily cut her off, gripping the bone. But this symbol, this place, it's all connected. We need to figure out what's going on before that thing comes back. A thud shook the door, the table screeching across the floor. The moans returned, louder. The eye symbol on the wall pulsing in time with them. Emily shoved the bone into her pocket, her heart racing. We can't stay here. We need to move. Sarah grabbed her arm, her voice desperate. Move where? That thing's out there. We're trapped. Jessica's eyes were distant, her voice a whisper. It wants us to stay. It wants us to see. Emily pulled them toward a back door, her flashlight beam trembling. The creature was close, its eyes burning through the walls. They had to find a way out, a way to fight. The bone in her pocket felt heavier, its warmth a warning. Hollow's Inn wasn't just a village. It was a cage, and the demon was its keeper. The air in the abandoned house was thick with rot. The eye symbols on the walls pulsing like heartbeats in the dim glow of Emily's flashlight. The door rattled, the table barricade groaning under the weight of something monstrous outside. The moans of the creature, low, guttural, emanating from its core, burrowed into Emily's skull, each sound a needle of pain. She clutched the carved bone in her pocket, its unnatural warmth seeping into her palm, and pulled Sarah and Jessica toward the back door. We're not staying here, she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. Move! Sarah's face was streaked with tears, her hands shaking as she gripped Emily's jacket. It's going to kill us, Em. We can't outrun that thing. Her voice cracked, panic swallowing her usual caution. Jessica was worse, her eyes darting wildly, as if seeing things the others couldn't. It's in my head, she muttered, scratching at her arms until red welts appeared. The eye, it's watching, always watching. Her voice was a hollow echo, her spark gone, replaced by something broken. Emily's heart pounded, but she forced herself to focus. The creature's eyes, those spiraling, blinking horrors, flashed in her mind, its pale, translucent skin stretching over bones that shouldn't bend that way. She couldn't let it win. We'll find another way out, she said, sweeping her flashlight across the room. The beam caught a narrow hallway, its walls stained with dark, glistening streaks that looked too much like blood. There, she said, nodding toward it. Go! They stumbled down the hall, the moans growing louder, the door behind them splintering. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the house itself was breathing. The hallway ended at a rusted metal door, its surface etched with the eye symbol, larger and more intricate than before. The spiral lines writhing like worms. Emily hesitated, her hand hovering over the handle. "This doesn't feel right," she whispered. Sarah's voice was shrill. "Nothing feels right." Emily's stomach churned, but the crashing from the front door left no choice. She yanked the handle, the door screeching open to reveal a stone staircase descending into darkness. The air that rushed up was foul, thick with the stench of blood and decay, and something worse, an unnatural sweetness that made her gag. "Stay close," she said, stepping onto the stairs, her flashlight beam trembling. The staircase spiraled down, the walls narrowing until they brushed her shoulders. The eye symbols were everywhere, carved into the stone, some crusted with dried blood, others glistening as if freshly etched. The moans faded, replaced by a new sound, a rhythmic drip like water but thicker. Sarah clung to Emily's arm, her breath hitching. "This is a tomb, Em. We're walking into a tomb." They reached a chamber, its walls covered in crude paintings that seemed to move in the flickering light. Blood dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the floor, each drop sizzling as it hit the stone. At the center stood a stone altar stained black, with a pile of bones and organs arranged in the shape of the eye symbol. Emily's legs buckled, her flashlight slipping. "What is this place?" Sarah gagged, turning away. "It's a shrine. They're worshiping that thing." Jessica approached the altar, her movements slow, as if drawn. "It's not worship," she whispered, her fingers hovering over the bones. "It's a ritual. They're feeding it." Her eyes were glassy, her voice distant, like she was speaking from somewhere else. Emily grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "Jess, snap out of it." But Jessica's words echoed her grandmother's story. The eye in the mountains, hungry for more than flesh. She scanned the chamber, her beam catching a leather-bound book half buried under the altar. She knelt, brushing away a layer of blood-soaked dust, and opened it. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the words were clear. The watcher beneath, bound by the first people, freed by the greed of men. Its body is many, its eyes are all, blood and soul to make it whole. "It's a diary," Emily said, her voice shaking. "From a miner, 1870s. Says the natives sealed this thing in the mountains, but miners dug too deep, woke it up. It took their bodies, split itself into pieces to hide. The villagers, they're not human. They're parts of it." Sarah's eyes widened. "You're saying that monster is the whole village? And it's trying to put itself back together?" Emily nodded, flipping to a sketch of the creature. Tall, pale, eyeless head, eyes crawling across its flesh. "It needs blood, sacrifices. That's why the bones, the organs. It's building itself." Jessica's voice cut through, sharp and panicked. "It's not just blood. It wants us. I saw it in my dream. It showed me. It needs our souls to be whole." She clutched her head, swaying. "It's in me. Eminesia. I can't get it out." Before Emily could respond, the chamber shook, the walls cracking as a moan tore through the air. The paintings pulsed, the figures' eyes blinking, their mouths opening in silent screams. Blood poured faster from the ceiling, splashing Emily's boots. Sarah screamed, scrambling back, while Jessica stared at the altar, transfixed. "It's here," she whispered. The creature emerged from the shadows, its form filling the chamber. Its skin glistened, wet and raw, the eyes on its body darting in all directions, locking onto each of them. Its stomach wound gaped wider, the moan now a screech that clawed at Emily's mind, filling it with images, her friends torn apart, their eyes sewn into the creature's flesh, her own body hollowed out. She staggered, clutching her head, the bone in her pocket burning against her thigh. "Run!" she screamed, grabbing Sarah's arm. Jessica didn't move, her eyes fixed on the creature, a smile twitching on her lips. Emily yanked her, dragging her toward the stairs. The creature lunged, its long arms slashing through the air, missing them by inches. The chamber trembled, stones falling, blood flooding the floor. They scrambled up the stairs, the creature's screeches echoing, its eyes burning into their backs. Emily's vision blurred, the AOGAC intensifying, Sarah's face melting, Jessica's eyes spiraling like the symbol. She shook her head, focusing on the door above. They burst into the hallway, slamming the metal doors shut. But the creature's claws scraped against it, the metal buckling. "We can't stay," Emily shouted, pulling them toward the back door. The house shook, windows shattering, the eye symbols glowing red. They stumbled outside, the forest a blur of shadows and snapping branches. The creature's moans followed, closer now, its presence a weight on their minds. "Keep going," Emily yelled, her lungs burning. They ran blindly, the pines tearing at their clothes. Sarah tripped, crying out, and Emily hauled her up, but Jessica was slowing, her steps faltering. "Just come on." Jessica turned, her eyes glowing faintly, the same spiral lines flickering in her pupils. "It's calling me," she said, her voice not her own. Before Emily could grab her, Sarah screamed. A branch had caught her jacket, pinning her. Emily spun to help, but the forest erupted in chaos, the creature's shadow looming through the trees. "Sarah," Emily shouted, but a massive arm swept through the darkness, knocking Sarah into the underbrush. Her scream cut off, swallowed by the moans. Emily lunged after her, but Jessica pulled her back. But the creature was closing in, its eyes visible through the trees, its screeches deafening. She had no choice. She grabbed Jessica's hand, and they ran deeper into the forest, the village's lights fading behind them. They collapsed in a clearing, gasping, the bone in Emily's pocket pulsing like a heartbeat. Sarah was gone, and Jessica's eyes still held that unnatural glow. The clearing was a shallow grave of moonlight, the pines clawing at the sky like twisted fingers. Emily's breath came in ragged gasps, her flashlight beam jittering across the trees as she clung to Jessica's arm. Sarah's scream still echoed in her mind, sharp and final, swallowed by the creature's moans. The bone in her pocket pulsed, its heat searing through her jeans, a constant reminder of the thing hunting them. Jessica's eyes, faintly glowing with spiraling lines, darted to the forest, her face unreadable. "We can't leave her," Emily said, her voice cracking. "Sarah's out there. We have to find her." Jessica's lips twitched, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "She's gone, Em. You saw it take her." Her voice was flat, almost mechanical, as she scratched at her arms, leaving bloody trails. "But if you want to look, I know where to go." Emily's stomach twisted. Jessica hadn't been herself since the blood on her hands, and now, with those eyes, she seemed like a stranger. But Sarah was her friend, her responsibility. Emily had dragged them into this nightmare, promising a fun camping trip. If Sarah was alive, she couldn't abandon her. "Show me," she said, gripping her flashlight tighter. But we stay together. The air was thick with a metallic stench of blood, now mixed with a sickly sweetness that coated Emily's throat. The ground was soft, almost spongy, and as she stepped forward, it oozed, dark liquid seeping around her boots. She gagged, shining her light down. It wasn't mud. It was blood, welling up from the earth like a wound. "What the hell is this?" Emily whispered, her heart hammering. Jessica didn't answer, her steps purposeful, leading them deeper. The forest was alive, the trees creaking as if breathing, their bark splitting to reveal glistening, fleshy insides, eyes small, spiraling like the symbol, blinked from the trunks, watching. Emily's skin crawled, her mind flashing to the creature's eyes, crawling across its pale flesh. "Jess, this isn't right. We need to." A scream tore through her head, not Sarah's, but her own, from a memory that wasn't hers. She stumbled, clutching her temples, as images flooded her mind. Sarah, pinned to the ground, her chest torn open, eyes spiraling as the creature's claws peeled her apart. Blood sprayed, and Sarah's voice begged, "Why didn't you save me, Em?" The vision was so vivid, so real, that Emily retched, collapsing to her knees. The bone in her pocket burned, and the whispers returned, louder, forming words. "Sie break mine. Ing." Jessica's voice cut through, sharp but distant. She stood over her, her eyes glowing brighter, the spirals twisting. "Get up. We're close." Emily shook her head, the vision lingering like a bruise. That wasn't real. She gasped, forcing herself to stand. "It's in my head. It's trying to break me." The diary's words echoed. The watcher beneath, its eyes are all. The creature wasn't just hunting, it was inside them, twisting their minds. Her grandmother's story surged again, the eye in the mountains that took what it wanted. Had she known? Had she seen it too? Jessica grabbed her arm, her grip too tight. "This way," she said, pulling Emily forward. Her nails dug into Emily's skin, drawing blood, but she didn't seem to notice. Emily yanked free, her flashlight catching Jessica's face. Her smile was gone, replaced by a blank stare, her pupils pulsing with the spiral. "Jess, what's wrong with you?" Jessica didn't answer, just pointed to a gap in the trees. Beyond it, a faint glow flickered, accompanied by a low chant, guttural and rhythmic. Emily's heart sank. "What did you do?" she whispered. But Jessica was already moving, her steps eerily silent. Emily followed, her flashlight shaking. The glow came from a clearing, where a circle of stones formed a crude altar. Surrounded by figures, villagers, their bodies hunched and wrong, their skins sagging like melted wax. Their eyes were spirals, glowing in the dark, and their mouths moved in unison, chanting in a language that grated against Emily's soul. At the altar's center, a pile of bones and flesh pulsed, blood dripping onto the stones, forming the eye symbol. The ground trembled, the blood seeping upward, defying gravity, coating the trees. Emily's breath caught. The diary had mentioned a ritual, blood and soul to make it whole. This was it, the Larry Mao, and the villagers were its vessels. Their bodies shimmered, flesh rippling as if dissolving, merging into a larger form. She realized with horror. They weren't just serving the creature. They were the creature, pieces of its body, preparing to reunite. Jessica stepped toward the circle, her movements jerky, like a puppet. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice not her own. "It needs us, Em. It needs 3. Emily grabbed her, spinning her around. "Jess, fight it. It's controlling you." But Jessica's eyes were empty, her smile returning, sharp and cruel. She lunged, her nails raking Emily's cheek, drawing blood. Emily staggered, pain flaring, and shoved Jessica back. "Stop it." Jessica laughed, a sound that wasn't human, and ran toward the circle. Emily sprinted after her, the chants growing louder, the air vibrating with energy. The villagers turned, their faces splitting open to reveal more eyes, spiraling and blinking. One lunged, its arms stretching impossibly long, claws grazing Emily's jacket. She ducked, her flashlight falling, and scrambled into the underbrush, Jessica's laughter echoing behind her. The forest closed in, the trees bending, their eyes tracking her. Emily's mind reeled, another vision hitting. Sarah, chained to the altar, her eyes hollow, whispering, "You let me die." Emily screamed, clawing at her face to banish the image. It wasn't real, but it felt like it. The creature's power sinking deeper into her psyche. She stumbled over something soft and froze. Her hands found fabric, Sarah's jacket, torn and bloodied, lying in a pool of crimson. Emily's heart shattered, the vision of Sarah's death flashing again. "No," she sobbed, clutching the jacket. But there were no bones, no body. Sarah might still be alive, taken for the ritual. The diary had said 3 souls. Were they the targets? A rustle made her spin. Jessica stood at the clearing's edge, her eyes blazing with spirals, her hands dripping with fresh blood, not her own. "You can't save her," she said, her voice layered with another, deeper tone. "The Watcher needs her. It needs you." She stepped forward, and the villagers appeared behind her, their bodies half-melted, eyes crawling across their flesh. Emily backed away, her hand closing around the bone in her pocket. It was scorching now, the eye symbol glowing through the fabric. The chant surged, the ground splitting, blood gushing like a geyser. The creature's form loomed in the distance, its eyes locking onto her, its Mona scream that tore at her mind. Another vision hit. Emily herself, her body hollow, her eyes spiraling, part of the creature's flesh. She fell, gasping, the bones slipping from her hand. Jessica lunged, her hands outstretched. But Emily rolled, grabbing the bone and sprinting into the forest. The villagers followed, their moans blending with the creatures, their bodies collapsing into a writhing mass of flesh and eyes. Emily ran blindly, branches tearing at her, blood seeping from the ground, the visions relentless. Sarah, Jessica, herself, all consumed. She collapsed against a tree, the bone clutched to her chest. The chants faded, the villagers gone, but Jessica's laughter lingered, close and cruel. Emily's cheek burned where Jessica had scratched her, and she touched it, her fingers coming away bloody. The blood shimmered, forming a faint spiral, like the eye. Her heart stopped. The creature wasn't just in Jessica. It was reaching for her too. Sarah was out there, alive or dead. And the ritual was growing stronger. Emily forced herself to stand, the bone's heat grounding her. She had to find Sarah, had to stop this. But Jessica's glowing eyes haunted her, a warning that the creature was closer than she thought. Emily's boots sank into the blood-soaked earth, each step a struggle against the forest's grip. The bone in her pocket burned, its eye symbol glowing through the fabric, a beacon in the moonless night. The San Juan Mountains loomed, their peaks jagged teeth against a sky that seemed to bleed darkness. Jessica's laughter, sharp, unnatural, echoed behind her, mingling with the creature's moans, a symphony of dread that clawed at Emily's sanity. Sarah's torn jacket, clutched in her hand, was a lifeline, proof that her friend might still be alive. She couldn't stop. Not now. Not when the Lamau was drawing closer. The forest pulsed, alive and malevolent. Trees twisted, their bark splitting to reveal oozing flesh, spiraling eyes blinking in the shadows. Blood dripped upward from the ground, defying gravity, coating branches in crimson. Emily's flashlight flickered, its beam bending as if the light itself feared what lay ahead. The whispers were constant now, No longer words, but a pressure, a voice inside her skull. "See, join mine." Her cheek burned where Jessica had scratched her, the spiral-shaped wound throbbing in time with the bone's heat. She stumbled into a clearing, the air so thick it choked her. Before her stood a church, its steeple leaning like a broken spine, its walls blackened by time and something worse. The eye symbol was carved above the door, larger than ever, its spiral lines writhing like veins. The structure seemed to breathe, its windows pulsing with a faint red glow, as if the building was a heart pumping blood. Emily's legs trembled, but the moans were closing in, the forest tightening like a noose. She had no choice. This was her only refuge. The door creaked open at her touch, the air inside cold and sour, heavy with the stench of decay and incense. The pews were rotted, they were splintered, stained with dark streaks that glistened wetly. A cracked altar stood at the far end, flanked by candles that burned with black flames, their light twisting the shadows into shapes. Figures with too many eyes, mouths screaming silently. The eye symbol was everywhere, carved into the floor, the walls, the ceiling, each one watching her. Emily's breath hitched, her flashlight dimming as the church seemed to swallow the light. She moved forward, Sarah's jacket pressed to her chest, the bones scorching her thigh. The whispers grew louder, forming a voice, not human, not animal, but something ancient, scraping her mind raw. "You cannot run," it said, each word a blade. "You are mine." Her vision blurred, and an AO-GAC hit. Her own face, eyeless, her skin pale and translucent, eyes spiraling across her chest. Her stomach moaning with hunger. She screamed, collapsing to her knees, the bones slipping from her pocket, its glow blinding. A shadow loomed, filling the church. The creature emerged, its form more grotesque than before. Its body was a mockery of flesh, 10 feet tall, its limbs bending at wrong angles, its skin so thin she could see bones pulsing beneath. Eyes, hundreds now, crawled across its surface, weeping blood that sizzled on the floor. Its faceless head tilted, the wound in its stomach gaping. A maw of teeth and darkness that screamed with a sound that shattered her eardrums. The pain was physical, her body convulsing as the moan tore through her, blood trickling from her nose. "Get on my head," Emily shouted, her voice raw. She grabbed the bone, its heat grounding her, and staggered to her feet. The creature lunged, its claws slashing the air, missing her by inches. The pews splintered, the candles flaring, their black flames licking the walls. Emily dove behind the altar, her heart pounding, the voice in her mind relentless. "Join me, become me." She saw Sarah's face in the AO-GAC, her eyes spiraling, her body merging with the creature's flesh, and then Jessica, smiling, her hands dripping blood. The altar was her only cover, its surface slick with blood that flowed upward, pooling in the air. Emily's fingers brushed something beneath it, a leather-bound book, its cover etched with the eye symbol. She yanked it free, the pages brittle, the ink smeared with blood. The words were frantic, written in a trembling hand. Father Amos, 1874. The watcher beneath cannot be killed, only bound. Muoi to purify, fire to burn. Blood freely given to seal. 3 souls to trap it, 1 to die. I failed. God forgive me. Emily's breath caught. This was it, a way to fight. The diary confirmed the creature's weakness. But the cost was steep. Blood freely given, 1 to die. Her grandmother's story echoed. The eye takes what it wants. Had she known this ritual, this church? The creature's claws scraped the altar, its eyes locking onto her, The moan now a roar that shook the walls. Blood poured from the ceiling, the symbols glowing red, the church warping, the walls bending inward. She grabbed a rusted candelabrum from the altar, its weight solid in her hands, and swung it at the creature. The metal struck its arm, the eyes there bursting, blood spraying. It screeched, recoiling, and Emily ran, clutching the diary and bone. The church trembled, the floor cracking, blood gushing like a river. She reached the door, but the creature was faster, its arm blocking her path, claws sinking into the wood. Its eyes bored into her, the voice in her mind deafening. You are mine. Emily's vision darkened, the AOG-ax surging. She was part of the creature, her body dissolving, her soul trapped in its flesh. She screamed, her will fraying, but Sarah's jacket in her hand anchored her. I'm not yours. She roared, throwing the candelabrum at its stomach wound. The metal sank in, black ichor erupting, and the creature staggered, its moan faltering. She burst through the door, the forest waiting, its eyes blinking from every tree. The creature's screeches followed, its form crashing through the church, splintering the steeple. Emily ran, the diary tucked under her arm, the bone burning her hand. The ground bled, the trees reaching for her, their branches tipped with claws. She heard Jessica's laughter, close now, and saw her silhouette ahead, her eyes glowing, leading her deeper into the forest. Just stop, Emily shouted, but Jessica didn't turn, her movements jerky, like a marionette. The villagers appeared, their bodies half-melted, eyes spiraling, their flesh rippling as they merged into the creature's form. They chanted, their voices a guttural drone, the Lu-Mao drawing closer. Emily dodged their grasping hands, her lungs burning, the bone's heat guiding her. She stumbled into a ravine, collapsing behind a boulder, the diary slipping from her grasp. The creature's moans faded, but the forest was alive, the blood pooling around her, the eyes watching. She opened the diary, her hands shaking, and read the final line. The ritual nears. 3 souls, 1 death. The watcher will rise. The bone pulsed. Its glow brighter, and she saw it, a faint trail of blood leading deeper into the ravine, Sarah's blood, fresh and glistening. Emily's heart raced. Sarah was alive, but the ritual was close, and Jessica was leading her into a trap. The creature's voice whispered, softer now, a promise. Join me, and she lives. Emily clutched the diary, the candelabrum's weight in her other hand, and stood. She'd fight for Sarah, for herself. But the spiral on her cheek burned, and Jessica's laughter grew louder, a warning that the watcher was watching. Emily's lungs burned as she stumbled through the ravine, the trail of Sarah's blood glistening under her flickering flashlight. The San Juan forest was a living nightmare, its trees writhing, their branches dripping blood that hissed on the ground. The bone in her pocket pulsed like a second heart, its eyes symbols searing her skin, while the diary of Father Amos, clutched under her arm, felt heavier with every step. The creature's moans echoed in the distance, a relentless reminder of its pursuit, but it was the whispers in her mind that cut deepest. You are mine. You will break. The spiral wound, on her cheek throbbed, a mark of the watcher beneath claiming her. The ravine narrowed, the walls closing in, their surfaces slick with blood that flowed upward, defying gravity. Eyes spiraling, blinking, sprouted from the rock, watching her every move, their pupils twitching like insects. Emily's head pounded, the air thick with a stench of rot and sweet decay that coated her throat. She clutched Sarah's torn jacket, its fabric her only anchor to hope. Sarah was alive. She had to be. The diary's words haunted her. 3 souls to trap it, 1 to die. Was it a 3? Was Sarah the sacrifice? A low moan shook the ground, and an AO-GX slammed into her. She saw herself, her body unraveling, skin peeling back to reveal eyes spiraling across her chest, her stomach gaping with a moaning wound. Her own voice screamed, "You're already mine," as her soul dissolved into the creature's flesh, trapped forever. Emily fell to her knees, retching, her flashlight rolling away. The vision was so real, the pain so sharp, she clawed at her face. Fearing the spiral wound had spread. "I'm still me," she gasped, forcing the words out. "I'm still me." The bone's heat surged, grounding her, and she grabbed the flashlight, its beam catching a cave mouth ahead, carved into the ravine's wall. The eye symbol loomed above it, pulsing red, blood trickling from its lines. The trail of Sarah's blood led inside, fresh and wet. Emily's heart raced. Sarah was here, but so was the Watcher. She opened the diary, her hands trembling, and scanned Amos's words. The ritual demands 3 souls, pure and strong. To bind the Watcher's form, one must give their blood willingly, their life to seal it. Without the 3, it cannot rise. Emily's breath caught. She, Sarah, Jessica, they were the targets. Their strength as young, vibrant women the key to the Lumau. She stepped into the cave, the air turning frigid, the walls throbbing like flesh. The flashlight dimmed, its light bending, as if the cave rejected it. Blood oozed from the ceiling, pooling on the floor, forming spiraling eyes that blinked and followed her. The whispers became a voice, sharp and ancient, slicing her mind. "Bring them to me, complete me." Her vision flickered. Another AO-GX hitting. She was the creature, her hands tearing Sarah apart, her eyes weeping blood, her soul screaming in its prison. She bit her lip, the pain snapping her back, and pressed forward, Sarah's jacket clutched to her chest. The cave opened into a vast chamber, its walls covered in carvings, figures kneeling before the Watcher, their bodies merging into its flesh, their eyes spiraling. At the center stood a stone platform, slick with blood, surrounded by 3 crude altars, each marked with the eye symbol. Bones and organs were piled on the platform, pulsing as if alive, blood flowing upward to form a shimmering veil. The air vibrated with a chant, low and guttural, coming from nowhere and everywhere. Emily's skin crawled. This was the heart of the ritual where the Watcher would rise. A figure moved in the shadows, and Emily's heart leaped. "Sarah," she called, her voice echoing. The figure turned, stepping into the faint glow of the blood veil. It was Sarah, her clothes torn, her face pale, but her eyes, spiraling, glowing, like Jessica's, were not her own. She smiled, a cruel twist of her lips, and tilted her head, her movements jerky, like a broken doll. She rasped, her voice layered with the Watcher's. "You came. It knew you would." Emily's throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes. "Sarah, fight it. You're stronger than this." She stepped forward, but Sarah raised a hand, blood dripping from her fingers, not her own. The spiral on Emily's cheek burned, and the AO-GX surged. She saw Sarah's body split open, eyes sprouting from her ribs. Her voice begging, "Join us, Em." Emily screamed, clutching her head, the diary slipping to the floor. Sarah lunged, faster than human, her nails slashing at Emily's arm. Blood welled, and Emily stumbled back, pain flaring. "It needs us," Sarah hissed, her eyes blazing. 3 souls, 1 to die. You make it whole." She grabbed Emily's wrist, dragging her toward the platform. Her strength unnatural. The blood veil shimmered, the chants surging, the eyes on the walls blinking in unison. Emily fought, kicking and twisting, but Sarah's grip was iron. The bone in her pocket scorched, and she yanked it free, its glow blinding. She swung it at Sarah's hand, the bone searing her skin. Sarah shrieked, recoiling, her eyes flickering, human for a moment, filled with fear. Help me, she whispered, her voice her own, before the spirals returned, swallowing her again. Emily scrambled to the diary, flipping to Amos's final page. Muoi to purify. Fire to burn, blood freely given to seal. The three must stand together, one to fall. She needed Muoi, fire, and a sacrifice, but Sarah was slipping away, and Jessica was a traitor. The chamber shook, the blood veil pulsing, and the Watcher's presence flooded the air, its moan of physical force that crushed her chest. The walls bled faster, eyes sprouting like tumors, their spirals locking onto her. Sarah attacked again, her nails grazing Emily's throat. Emily dove behind an altar, her flashlight gone. The bones glow her only light. She saw figures approaching, villagers, their bodies half dissolved, flesh rippling, eyes crawling across their forms. They chanted, their voices merging with the Watchers, their arms stretching toward her. Emily's mind frayed. The Ao-Jiak relentless. She was the Watcher, her body a mass of eyes and wounds, Sarah and Jessica screaming inside her. She bit her tongue, blood filling her mouth, and clung to the diary. I'm not yours, she whispered, her voice shaking. The villagers closed in, their hands oozing blood, their eyes spiraling. Emily grabbed a shard of bone from the altar, its edge sharp, and slashed at the nearest villager. Its flesh parted, black ichor spraying, but it didn't stop, its eyes weeping blood. Sarah lunged again, her voice a scream. Join us. Emily dodged, the bone in her hand pulsing, and ran for a tunnel at the chamber's edge, the diary tucked under her arm. The tunnel was narrow, the walls throbbing, blood gushing around her ankles. The villagers' moans followed, their bodies merging into a writhing mass, eyes blinking from the stone. Emily's vision darkened, the Ao-Jiak showing her as the Watcher's vessel. Her soul trapped forever. She screamed, the bone's heat burning her hand, and burst into the forest, the cave collapsing behind her. She collapsed against a tree, gasping. The diary and bone clutched to her chest. The forest was alive, eyes blinking from every trunk, blood seeping from the ground. Sarah was still in the cave, a pawn in the ritual, and Jessica's laughter echoed nearby, sharp and cruel. The diary's words burned in her mind. 3 souls, 1 to die. The Watcher needed them all, and Emily was running out of time. The spiral on her cheek pulsed, a reminder that the creature was inside her, waiting to claim her soul. The forest was a writhing beast, its trees pulsing with veins of blood, their branches snapping like bones. Emily staggered through the underbrush. The diary of Father Amos clutched her chest, the carved bone in her pocket searing her skin. The spiral wound on her cheek burned, a living mark of the Watcher beneath, its whispers a constant assault. Give yourself, complete me. Sarah's bloodied jacket hung from her hand, a fading hope that her friend was still alive. Jessica's laughter, sharp, inhuman, cut through the night, closer now, a taunt that drove Emily forward. The San Juan Mountains loomed, their peaks clawing at a sky that bled crimson, as if the world itself was unraveling. The ground quaked, blood erupting from the earth in geysers, spraying her face with a warm, metallic tang. Eyes, spiraling, weeping, sprouted from the trees, their pupils twitching, locking onto her. Emily's flashlight was gone, lost in the cave, but the bone's glow lit her path, its eye symbol pulsing in time with her racing heart. The diary's words echoed. 3 souls, 1 to die. She, Sarah, Jessica, they were the key to the Lumau, and the Watcher was winning. A clearing opened ahead, a circle of jagged stones surrounding a blood-soaked altar, identical to the one in the cave. The air vibrated with a chant, guttural and ancient, as figures emerged. Villagers, their bodies grotesque, flesh melting into a writhing mass, eyes crawling across their forms. Their mouths gaped, spiraling pupils glowing. As they raised bloodied hands toward the altar, where bones and organs pulsed like a heart, blood flowed upward, forming a veil that shimmered with the eye symbol, its lines twisting like worms. Emily froze, her breath hitching. The ritual was here, now, and Jessica's laughter led her straight to it. A shadow moved at the altar's edge, and Jessica stepped into the bone's glow, her eyes blazing with spirals, her hands dripping fresh blood. Her smile was cruel, her movements jerky, like a puppet. "You're late, Em," she rasped, her voice layered with the Watcher's. "It's almost time." Emily's heart shattered. "Jess, fight it. You're not this." She stepped forward, but an AOG axe slammed into her, so vivid she screamed. The clearing vanished, replaced by the creature's form, tall, pale, its stomach wound gaping, a maw of teeth and darkness. Jessica crawled from the wound, her body half human, half monster, her skin splitting to reveal eyes that wept blood. Her voice, distorted, begged, "Join me, Em." As she reached out, her claws sinking into Emily's chest. The pain was real, her body convulsing, blood trickling from her mouth. The bone's heat snapped her back, the clearing reappearing. Jessica lunged, her nails slashing Emily's arm, blood welling. Emily stumbled, pain flaring, and swung the diary, hitting Jessica's face. Jessica shrieked, her eyes flickering, human for a moment, filled with terror, before the spirals returned. "It's in me," she hissed, her voice breaking. "It's taking my soul." Emily's eyes stung with tears, but she backed away, the diary open in her hands. A new page caught her eye, Amos's writing frantic. "The Watcher takes souls by breaking the will. AOG to shatter, blood to bind. The vessels, the villagers, are its flesh, guiding the 3 to the altar. The chosen must bleed willingly, their soul torn free to feed the ritual." Emily's stomach churned. The villagers weren't just pawns. They were the Watcher's body, fragmented to lure her, Sarah, and Jessica into the Lumau. The AOG, the blood, it was all to make them surrender. Jessica attacked again, faster, her claws grazing Emily's throat. Emily dodged, tripping over a stone, and scrambled to the altar, her hands searching for anything to fight with. Her fingers found a rusted knife, its blade etched with the eye symbol, buried among the bones. She grabbed it, the metal warm, and slashed at Jessica, cutting her arm. Black ichor sprayed, not blood, and Jessica laughed, the sound echoing with the Watcher's voice. "You can't stop it," she said, her eyes spiraling. "It needs 3, and you next." The villagers closed in, their bodies merging, flesh rippling into a mass of eyes and claws. The blood veil pulsed, the chants deafening, the ground splitting. Emily's mind reeled. Another Aogiak hitting. She was at the altar, her wrists slit, blood pouring willingly, her soul screaming as it dissolved into the watcher. She bit her tongue, the pain grounding her, and ran, the knife in one hand, the diary in the other. Jessica pursued, her movements inhuman, her laughter a blade in Emily's skull. The forest warped, trees bending, eyes weeping blood that burned her skin. Emily's cheek wound throbbed, the spiral spreading, and she felt the watcher's presence, a weight crushing her mind. The bone glowed brighter, guiding her to a stream, its water red with blood. She splashed through it, the villagers' moans behind her, Jessica's claws slashing the air. The diary slipped, pages tearing, but she clutched it. Amos's words her only hope. Muoi to purify, fire to burn, blood freely given. A roar shook the forest, and a watcher appeared, its form towering over the trees, its eyes, hundreds, bleeding, locking onto her. Its stomach wound gaped, teeth gnashing, and Jessica stood before it, her body shimmering, half melting into its flesh. "You see," she screamed, her voice the watcher's. "I'm part of it now." Her arm stretched, claws sinking into Emily's shoulder, pain exploding. Emily screamed, slashing with the knife, cutting Jessica's hand. The ichor sprayed, and Jessica recoiled, her eyes flickering human again. Run," she whispered, before the spirals consumed her. The watcher lunged, its claws tearing through the trees, blood raining from the sky. Emily dove into the underbrush, the bones glow her guide, the diary clutched her chest. She crawled through the blood-soaked earth, the watcher's moans shaking her bones. The villagers merged fully, their mass joining the creature, eyes sprouting from its limbs. Emily's vision darkened, the Aogiak showing her at the altar, her soul torn free. Sarah and Jessica screaming beside her. She stabbed the knife into her palm, the pain banishing the vision, and ran, the stream leading her to a cliff's edge. She collapsed, gasping. The diary opened to Amos's final warning. The ritual takes the soul when the chosen bleeds willingly. There will broken. Stop the vessels, break the altar. The bone pulsed, its glow fading. And she saw Jessica's silhouette on the cliff, her eyes spiraling, the watcher's form behind her. The ritual needed one more soul, hers, and Sarah was still out there, a pawn in the lumau. Emily gripped the knife, blood dripping from her palm, and stood. She'd fight, but the spiral on her cheek burned, and Jessica's laughter promised the watcher was close. Emily clung to the cliff's edge, her bloodied hands slipping on the jagged rock, the rusted knife and diary of Father Amos tucked into her jacket. The forest below was a writhing hell, blood gushing from the earth, trees splitting to reveal pulsating flesh, their spiraling eyes weeping crimson. The watcher beneath's moans shook the San Juan mountains, a sound that clawed at her bones, while Jessica's laughter, now fully the creature's, echoed like a death knell. The spiral wound on Emily's cheek burned, spreading across her face, a mark of the creature claiming her soul. Sarah was out there, trapped in the lumau, and Emily was the last piece of the ritual's puzzle. The bone in her pocket pulsed, its glow dimming, as if sensing the ritual's climax. She forced herself to stand, the diary's words her only guide. Muoi to purify, fire to burn, blood freely given to seal. Stop the vessels, break the altar. The altar! She'd seen it in the clearing, the heart of the ritual, where the villagers' flesh merged to rebirth the watcher. If she could destroy it, she might save Sarah and stop the creature. But the cost haunted her, want to die. Her grandmother's voice whispered, "The eye takes what it wants," and Emily feared it wanted her. She descended the cliff, the forest closing in, its air thick with blood and decay. The ground was a swamp of crimson, bubbling around her boots, eyes blinking from the muck. The whispers were deafening, a voice in her mind. "Bleed for me, become me." An AO-GIAC hit, vivid and cruel. She was the watcher, her body a mass of eyes and wounds, Sarah and Jessica screaming inside her, their souls trapped in her flesh. Her own voice laughed, "You're mine," as she tore herself apart. Emily screamed, stabbing the knife into her thigh, the pain banishing the vision. Blood dripped, mixing with the forests, and the spiral on her cheek pulsed, her will fraying. The clearing loomed ahead, the circle of stones now a pulsing wound in the earth. The altar glowed, bones and organs writhing, blood flowing upward to form a towering veil, its eye symbol blazing red. Villagers surrounded it, their bodies grotesque, flesh melting into a single mass, eyes sprouting like tumors. Their chants a guttural roar. They were no longer human, their forms merging into the watchers, its shape rising behind the veil, taller now, 15 feet, its skin translucent, eyes crawling across its limbs, its stomach wound a gaping maw that screamed with 1,000 voices. Emily's heart pounded, but she clutched the knife, its blade warm, etched with the eye symbol. She searched her jacket, finding a small bag of salt, camping supplies, a desperate hope. The diary had said salt purified, fire burned, and blood sealed. She had no fire, but the knife and salt were a start. The villagers' eyes locked onto her, their chants faltering, and the watcher's voice boomed in her mind. "You cannot stop me. Your soul is mine." She ran toward the altar, salt spilling from her trembling hands, scattering across the stones. The ground hissed, blood boiling where the salt fell, the eyes in the earth shrieking. The villagers lunged, their arms stretching, claws slashing. Emily ducked, the knife cutting through a villager's hand, black ichor spraying. Its face split, eyes weeping blood, but it kept coming, its body merging with the others, forming a wall of flesh and eyes. She threw salt, the mass recoiling, its screams shaking the trees. The altar pulsed faster, the blood veil shimmering. And Emily saw it, a stone slab at its center, carved with the eye symbol, glowing with an unnatural light. The diary's words flashed, "Break the altar." It was the ritual's heart, holding the souls the watcher had taken. She sprinted, dodging claws, salt burning the ground. The villagers merged fully, their mass joining the watcher, its form solidifying, eyes blazing, its wound screaming her name. An AO-GIAC struck. She was at the altar, her wrists slit, blood pouring willingly, her soul tearing free as Sarah and Jessica watched, their eyes spiraling. "You failed," they whispered, their voices the watchers. Emily bit her lip, blood filling her mouth, and reached the altar, pouring salt onto the slab. The stone cracked, blood gushing, the veil flickering. The watcher roared, its claws tearing through the air, missing her by inches. She raised the knife, ready to strike the slab, when a figure emerged from the veil. Jessica, her body twisted, half melted into the watcher's flesh, her eyes spiraling, her hands dripping ichor. She crawled from the creature's stomach wound, as in the AO-GIAC, her skin splitting, eyes sprouting from her ribs. "Join us, Em," she hissed, her voice a chorus of the damned. She lunged, claws sinking into Emily's arm, pain exploding. Emily screamed, slashing with the knife, cutting Jessica's shoulder. Ichor sprayed, and Jessica laughed, her eyes flickering human for a moment, pleading, "Kill me." Emily's heart broke, but the Watcher's voice drowned Jessica's. "She is mine. You're next." Emily threw salt, Jessica recoiling, her body shimmering, merging back into the creature. The Watcher attacked, its claws shattering the stones, blood raining from the sky. Emily stabbed the knife into the altar slab, the blade sinking deep. The stone split, a scream erupting, not from a Watcher but from the altar itself, as if the souls trapped within cried out. The blood veil collapsed, the eyes in the forest blinking shut, the villagers' mass dissolving into ash. The Watcher staggered, its eyes dimming, its wound leaking ichor. Emily's cheek wound burned, the spiral fading slightly, her mind clearer. But the ritual wasn't over. The Watcher's voice whispered, "One more soul," and the forest pulsed, blood gushing anew. Emily saw a figure in the distance, Sarah, chained to a new altar, her eyes spiraling, her voice chanting with the Watchers. The diary had warned, 3 souls, 1 to die. Emily's blood was needed, willingly given, to stop it, but the altar's destruction had only delayed the inevitable. She ran, the Watcher's moans pursuing, the forest warping, eyes reappearing. Jessica's laughter returned, distant but cruel, a sign she was still out there, a vessel for the Watcher. Emily gripped the knife, blood dripping from her wounds, and headed towards Sarah. The ritual was at its peak, and she was the last piece. The spiral on her cheek pulsed, a reminder that the Watcher was inside her, waiting. She'd break the ritual or die trying. But Sarah's glowing eyes promised it wouldn't be easy. Emily sprinted through the bleeding forest, the San Juan Mountains a jagged wound against a sky that screamed red. The diary of Father Amos was her lifeline, its pages torn but burning with truth. Muoi to purify, fire to burn, blood freely given to seal. The rusted knife in her hand dripped with her own blood. The bone in her pocket a scorching ember, its eye symbol pulsing like a dying star. Sarah's jacket hung from her waist, a reminder of the friend she'd failed. Chained to an altar in the heart of the Lumao. The Watcher beneath's moans shook the earth, its voice in her mind a relentless claw. "You are mine. You will bleed." The spiral wound on her cheek was a living tattoo, spreading down her neck, a mark that the creature was inside her. The forest was no longer a forest. It was the Watcher's body. Trees pulsing with veins of blood, their bark splitting to reveal gaping maws of teeth and eyes, spiraling and weeping crimson. The ground was a quagmire of gore. Hands of blood reaching from the muck, clawing at her boots. Jessica's laughter, now a demonic chorus, led her to the ritual's core, a vast clearing, the final altar, a monolith of bone and flesh. Surrounded by a circle of stones that bled upward, forming a veil that shimmered with the eye symbol, larger than ever, its lines writhing like serpents. Villagers stood in a ring, their bodies dissolved into a writhing mass, flesh melting into the Watcher's form, now complete. A 30-foot colossus, its skin a rotting tapestry of human and beast. Eyes, thousands crawling across its limbs, weeping blood that burned the ground. Its stomach wound was a vortex, teeth gnashing, screaming with the souls it had taken. Jessica stood before it, her body half-merged, eyes spiraling, her voice the Watcher's. "One more, Emily. You." Sarah was chained to the altar, her eyes glowing with spirals, her voice chanting in unison with the creatures. Emily's heart broke. Sarah was alive, but not herself, a puppet in the Lumao. The diary had said 3 souls, one to die, and Emily was the last. She gripped the knife, her blood dripping, and pulled the bag of salt from her jacket, the last of her supplies. The bone's glow flared, guiding her forward, but the watcher's voice roared, "Bleed willingly, or they burn forever." Emily charged, scattering salt across the stones. The ground screamed, blood boiling, the eyes in the earth bursting. The villagers' mass lunged, claws slashing, but she dodged, throwing salt that burned their flesh, their screams echoing with the watcher's pain. She reached the altar, pouring salt onto the chains, binding Sarah, the metal hissing, weakening. Sarah's eyes flickered, human for a moment, pleading, "Em, stop it," before the spirals returned, her hands clawing at Emily's face. Jessica attacked, her body shimmering, half human, half watcher. Claws sinking into Emily's shoulder. Blood sprayed, pain blinding, but Emily slashed with a knife, cutting Jessica's arm. Ichor poured, and Jessica laughed, her eyes blazing. "You can't save her," she hissed, her voice the creature's. "She's ours." Emily threw salt, Jessica recoiling, her body dissolving into the watcher's, its eyes locking onto Emily, its wounds screaming her name. An AO-GAC hit. She was the altar, her body torn open, blood pouring willingly, her soul shredding as Sarah and Jessica screamed inside her. The watcher laughed, its voice her own. "You're home." Emily stabbed her palm, the pain banishing the vision, and grabbed a torch from the ground, its flames stolen from a villager's fire. She thrust it into the altar, the bones igniting, the blood veil flickering. The watcher roared, its claws tearing through the air, shattering stones. "Sarah, wake up!" Emily screamed, cutting her own wrist with a knife. Blood dripping onto the chains. The diary had said, "Blood freely given," and she'd give it all if it meant saving her friend. The chain snapped, Sarah collapsing, her eyes human but dazed. Emily dragged her away, the torch in one hand, the knife in the other, salt scattered around them. The watcher lunged, its claws grazing her back, blood soaking her jacket. Jessica reappeared, her body fully merged, eyes sprouting from her face, her voice a scream. "You'll die with us." She tackled Emily, claws sinking in her chest, pain exploding. Emily thrust the torch into Jessica's side, flames erupting, ichor spraying. Jessica shrieked, her body dissolving into ash, her human eyes pleading for a moment before fading. Emily's heart shattered. Jessica was gone, consumed by the watcher. The altar burned, the veil collapsing, the watcher staggering, its eyes dimming. Emily poured the last of the salt. The ground cracking, blood gushing. She cut her wrist deeper, blood pooling on the altar, her vision darkening. "Take it," she whispered, offering her blood willingly, as Amos had written. The watcher screamed, its form unraveling, eyes bursting, its wound vomiting ichor. The villagers' mass dissolved, the forest stilling, the eyes blinking shut. Emily collapsed, Sarah beside her, both gasping. The altar was ash, the watcher gone, the spiral on her cheek fading. She'd done it. She'd broken the ritual. Sarah stirred, her eyes clear, whispering, "Em, you saved me." Emily hugged her, tears falling, but the bone in her pocket was cold, its glow gone, a warning that nothing was certain. Weeks later, Emily sat in her Denver dorm. The city's a stark contrast to Hollow's End. Sarah was in therapy, barely speaking, haunted by the cave. Emily posted her story on Reddit. A creepypasta no one believed. Comments joking about The Exorcist ripoffs. She laughed bitterly. Her Instagram feed full of fake smiles, her followers oblivious. The spiral wound was gone, but a new mark had appeared on her wrist. A faint eye, its lines spiraling, pulsing faintly when she was alone. She stared at her laptop, typing her final post. Don't go to the San Juans. It's still there. Her reflection in the screen grinned, her eyes glowing faintly, spiraling. Don't worry, she whispered, her voice not entirely her own. I brought it back. The screen went black. The above story is completely untrue. I just bring you a story to relax your mind before going to bed. If you find it interesting, don't forget to like. Subscribe to the channel to receive notifications about upcoming videos as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next video.